Right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news for you today. Actually, we've got a whole bunch of crypto news. And so we're not going to cover everything in its entirety, but welcome to the pumpening once again. As of recording, we're at about 11,007 or 800 Bitcoin. So moving on up again. Where's it going to get to this time? Nobody knows, but let's get into the main article. One Satoshi is now worth more than 7 national currencies. So at one point, it probably was already, but this is an interesting article to think about. A Satoshi isn't worth much, but that's the design at 100 millionth of a Bitcoin, which is the smallest unit Bitcoin is divisible into. If Bitcoin's price hit 1 million, then a micro Bitcoin will be worth $1, and a Satoshi the equivalent of 1 cent, which I think is actually probably better than like 10 or $100 million Bitcoin, because 1 cent, then you could buy something that's like $3.30 and you could just pay 330 Satoshi. I think that would be really convenient, but of course, higher than that is always good as well. But so a few of them that it's worth more is the Iranian rial, the Vietnamese dong, which is 2.7 dong, which is, you know, a pretty funny name, but fair enough. The Indonesian rupiah, if I said that correctly, is larger than the Guinean franc from Guinea. The Sierra Leonean leone, which is an interesting currency, the Leonean leone. Fair enough. Lao Kip at number 6, and the number 7 is the Uzbekistani Som. So 7 currencies in the world, at least so far, that 1 Satoshi is worth more. I'm actually sort of surprised that the Venezuelan dollar did not make this, or I can't actually remember what the Venezuelan currency is called, but they're in an absolute inflationary crisis. So at least 7 currencies. That means Bitcoin is definitely going places, and the higher and higher we get, the more people are going to be into it. Now, another thing too that I didn't really pull up an article on is that the stock market lost a lot of money today. The Dow was down by like 800 points. I think it was like 3 or 5% down. And there's been a lot of articles and things like that saying that Bitcoin is the safe haven for assets. And so sooner or later, I think people are really going to start understanding that, especially when Bitcoin makes it to a lot of stock market exchanges where people go online and trade stock as opposed to Bitcoin. And the day that those all sort of put Bitcoin on their exchange, I think that's when Bitcoin is really, really going to explode, among other things as well. Just because, you know, people are going to see their stocks going down at some point, and they're going to see Bitcoin up 10% or 8% for the day, and it might make them think twice about investing towards Bitcoin. Another news article, this isn't quite news, but Ethereum now has over 200,000 smart contracts or token contracts. As we can see here, you can actually find these, and you can see the entire list, 204,347. And this is why Ethereum is the second highest currency market cap. Ethereum has brought us all of this, whereas the other currencies just really haven't brought us that much. Now, the other smart contract currencies just really haven't brought us that much, and the development is huge towards Ethereum, and it makes it the easiest for people to do. And this is why I believe that Ethereum is grossly undervalued, because look at all of it that is riding on Ethereum itself. BNB, Tether, Bitfinex LEO token, Chainlink, Maker, USD Coin, InnoCoin, BAT, VeChain, Hedge, Agricia, if I said that right, Huobi token. I don't ever know if I'm actually saying Huobi right. I think it's, boy, this is like the news article, you know, the episode of me not being able to say things correctly. Omisigo, TrueUSD, KuCoin shares, and the list just keeps going and going and going. As what is Zilliqa, everything is basically on the Ethereum blockchain, and a lot of things start off on the Ethereum blockchain and eventually merge to their own. blockchain, and that's all thanks to Ethereum. And that's why I feel like Ethereum is grossly undervalued at the moment. But moving on here, Bitcoin SV blockchain temporarily split into three. Oh, man. Oh, Bitcoin SV. So a big block blues. On January 24th, the BSV network underwent a scheduled network upgrade with the intent to raise the block size from 128 megabytes to 2 gigabytes, which is basically impossible. I mean, imagine writing 2 gigabytes, potentially 2 gigabytes every 10 minutes. That's... Only servers would really be able to do that. You would run out of space pretty quickly. A whopping 19% failed to follow the last month's upgrade, while another 17% had their nodes crash when receiving the 210 megabyte block. Some popular BSV services such as CoinDance and MoneyButton got stuck at the 210 megabyte block, unable to keep up with the rest of the network. The CEO of MoneyButton, a devout SV supporter, talked about his issues running an SV node on the MoneyButton blog. He said yesterday, MoneyButton went down because of our Bitcoin SV node ran out of memory and crashed during a stress test. So, SV. So, there is a point at which blocks are far too big and expanding too quickly. Probably not the best bet. The node ran out of memory because we were using an underpowered instance. We have upgraded the instance to be sufficient for the large block sizes that are currently possible. MoneyButton was back online after about 3 hours of downtime. Our new instance will cost thousands of dollars per month to operate. As blocks continue to get larger and we have to upgrade the instance many times, this cost will balloon. So this is somebody who was a devout SV supporter and is now saying basically the server that is going to have to run just the blockchain and the core node essentially will cost thousands of dollars to operate and will balloon over time. And this is because every 10 minutes you have to write so much to the Bitcoin blockchain. Well, now it's you got to write 210 megabytes, you got to write 2 gigabytes. And there's not a lot of transactions on the Bitcoin SV blockchain. There just isn't. Whether you like it or not, there just isn't a lot of transactions. There's not a lot of people using it. And, you know, while Bitcoin's is probably too low, admittedly, SV is just wildly too high, and they just upgraded. It's like making a highway, across Antarctica, like a 4-lane, and just saying, hey, someday somebody will use this highway. A lot of people will use this highway. Or, creating an 8-lane highway in the middle of the desert. Like, eventually the population will be so high we'll use this. But it seems like you could have gotten away with just a 2-lane road for the next few decades and then expanded as needed to like a 4-lane, etc. It just was too much too fast. Bitmain loses $625 million in 2 months, but pins hope on new tech. Wow, Bitmain. Exactly. Good job, Bitcoin mining rig manufacturer Bitmain reportedly made losses of $625 million in the first 2 months of 2019. However, it has high hopes for a turnaround based on demand for new 7-nanometer mining machines. $625 million, nearly $1 billion. Man, if I ran a company and lost $625 million, wow. I mean, that is real bad. And all thanks to them producing a ton of miners that had to end up going back and, it just, hey, let's put all our hash power into Bitcoin Cash, which didn't work out too well. According to a report from a Chinese news outlet, Bitmain's total operating income for quarter one was $1.082 billion, with revenue split over the 3 months as $253 million, $253 million, that's convenient, and $579 million respectively. January and February saw losses of $345 million and $280 million, although in March the company posted a profit of $315 million. Still, a $310 million loss over Q1. It's not a good look. Reportedly, the loss was down to the offloading of outdated 16-nanometer mining rig inventory at low prices, which they'll be mining on their own 7-nanometer mining machines for as long as they're making a lot of money. Then when the profit's not so good, they'll make sure to sell their used miners to you. Just make sure when you open them up and you get that package, you open it up, you take a look in there and see how much dust is in there. Probably a little bit because it's already been used. Good job, Bitmain. Good job. Litecoin halves without a glitch. So Litecoin halved today, August 5th. The Litecoin halving of the block reward was reached on August 5th based on an early schedule of accelerated block production. Charlie Lee, Litecoin's founder, tweeted, Litecoin halving was a success and the price just hit $100. Which is since down from now. I think it's like 95 now. It went up to about 103 from what I saw, at least on Coinbase. I'm not sure what CoinMarketCap has to say. We'll check that in a moment. And now it's about $95. So apparently the halvening was, Charlie Lee was correct. The halvening was already priced in, and block 168,000 produced 12.5 Litecoin in block rewards. So now every 2.5 minutes, it's only 12.5 Litecoin instead of 25. Interesting that Litecoin not doing so well. Now, admittedly, Litecoin was up from about $22 low, call it 25 or so, it went up to about 130, 140 for a little bit there. So honestly, that was one of the biggest losers and biggest gainers recently. Yet it still seems undervalued, and I think Litecoin is undergoing an identity crisis right now. There is sort of an existential crisis that Litecoin is undergoing. Now, let me explain that just a little bit. I used to be the biggest Litecoin fan. Litecoin was my absolute favorite coin. To some degree, it still is. There was a lot of problem with Charlie Lee in the beginning. When I first got into Litecoin, Charlie Lee used to tweet really good things and really bad things in his tweets. He would say the good stuff, and he would also say the bad stuff, which you could say that's just truthful, that's just honest. Bad marketing, though. The problem is when he would tweet something good, the price would go up. When he tweet something bad, the price would go down, and people started blaming him of sort of manipulating the price with his tweets. Eventually, he sold off all of his Litecoin. I think at like $325 Litecoin, he sold all of it. I don't know how much it was, probably millions upon millions of dollars of it, and then said it would get down to about $22 eventually, which it pretty much did. So he was spot on. So honestly, Charlie Lee is one of the most honest and one of the most correct in terms of his predictions, and nobody really liked that. Now, I didn't care because, in my opinion, that's just smart. Selling at the close to the all-time high, good job. That's what you're supposed to do. But some people did not like that. Another thing about Charlie Lee is that, you know, before it was on Coinbase, Litecoin was sort of nothing. And Charlie Lee used to be an engineer at Coinbase, and he convinced Brian Armstrong to put Litecoin on. That's pretty much the only reason why Litecoin is as big as it is today. And in 2017, it became very useful. At the end of 2017, first of all, Bitcoin had extremely high transaction fees. You could argue that today. However, I would argue against that because you can transfer millions or billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin at a time and pay $4 or $5 for that transaction or less, especially if it was on the Lightning Network or depending on the time and circumstances. But either way, that is borderline free. To transfer millions of dollars for a few dollars, you've got to be kidding me if anybody argues with that. Now, for buying a cup of coffee, not good. So back in 2017, the transactions of Bitcoin were very, very high. I remember reading stories of people going to bars and getting $20 or $30 worth of drinks and then saying, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? The bartender says yes. And they go to transfer the Bitcoin and the transactions were so high. It's so, the block's so full that it would take, they'd have to sit around for an hour for the transaction to go through. And the fee was $15 or $20. So they basically paid 100% their total bill just to pay their bill. So it wasn't good. Now, what are the reasons for that? So here are the reasons for that. First of all, bitmain was spamming the Bitcoin network. They were spamming little transactions over the Bitcoin network. And you might think to yourself, wouldn't that cost them a lot of money? Well, yes, but they're gigantic miners. They use their own miners. They use their own ant miners, S9s at the time, S15s and 17s now. So they run their own miners, probably hundreds of thousands of them in their warehouses. They also have Litecoin miners, etc., that they run. And So if you're that big of a miner, miners on the Bitcoin network get those transaction fees. So they're going to get the majority of those transaction fees right back to them. Now they might lose a little bit of money on that, but what they did was made Bitcoin have high transaction fees for one, so that it made Bitcoin Cash look even better with its lower fees. Another reason was SegWit wasn't implemented on every exchange. In fact, Coinbase didn't implement SegWit till just recently. So a lot of exchanges, a lot of nodes, a lot of wallets and stuff weren't using SegWit. So that was raising, not necessarily raising fees, but also not lowering them. That's for sure. Also, exchanges weren't batching. Coinbase still doesn't batch. They said that was an embarrassment. So a lot of exchanges and things like that were not batching. So that means just like take all the transactions for the past few minutes or so, pile them in, or for the past, and then send them all at once in a more organized manner. In the same way that like Visa and MasterCard do, they gather up a bunch of transactions and send them all at once instead of just yours and then this person's. It's just more efficient. And another thing is that wallets weren't very good at the time of calculating fees for you. And they would calculate really ridiculous fees when you could have put in a smaller fee and just waited a little bit longer for your Bitcoin to go through. So there was that. So there was a lot of reasons, and the reason because of that, Litecoin was very useful. I remember mining with Awesome Miner and having my whatever I mined, whether it was Zcash or Z Classic at the time, Equihash and Lira2, etc. Coins that. I would automatically transform it exchange it to Litecoin, and then from there I would send it to my Litecoin wallet because it was one of the cheapest ways to do that. You wouldn't want to do that with Bitcoin. Ethereum was actually a little bit more expensive at the time, and I didn't want to touch Bitcoin Cash, so Litecoin was the choice, and Litecoin was the choice for a lot of people to use these smaller transactions. Well, now that fees are really, really low, and of course Litecoin is still lower, it's lost its luster. The fact that it was so much cheaper than the competition to send transactions, and now not so much. Now we've had a lot more development in the industry. We've had a lot more new coins. We've had a lot of development with Bitcoin itself that make it a lot cheaper. And so I think Litecoin is definitely undergoing an identity crisis, and they should add privacy features to Litecoin so that you could send it, Mimblewimble. I think they were working on that, but I haven't heard hide or hair of that ever since. So Litecoin needs to evolve. It really hasn't had much development in several years, and it's just been Litecoin ever since, which is great. But Litecoin is Litecoin only really shines, and its identity shows when transaction fees of other coins are very high. But we've since sort of moved past that, and so I don't think people rely on Litecoin as much, and that's why. So moving on here, U.S. Federal Reserve launching a payment system. So the United States Federal Reserve Board is planning to release a real-time payments and settlement service, probably a blockchain with some digital tokens of some sort. And there's always some kind of like ad with like nearly nude people on these sites, which they should probably get rid of. That's always fun. Even with ad block, they're still there. That's always good. That's a good look. That's a good family look. I love it. A press release published on August 5th reads that the Board of Governors and the Federal Reserve System have requested that Federal Reserve banks develop a new interbank real-time settlement service to support faster payments in the U.S. The payment is called FedNow and will reportedly launch in 2023 or 24, which is so long from now, seemingly. And it seems like they could do that way faster with just any kind of blockchain, but sure, why not? By launching FedNow, the Fed aims to modernize the country's payment system with a real-time service that can transfer funds around the clock on weekdays and weekends. Service will purportedly be available to both businesses and the general public. So even the Fed Reserve getting in on that blockchain, and as long as you have some kind of tokens and those tokens have a value to them and you send them instantly, you don't have your money necessarily, but you have an instantaneous IOU. You have an instantaneous form of form of wealth, a store of wealth, because you could say, the Federal Reserve could say, hey, we've linked this much money to these tokens, so if we send you 1,000 tokens, it's worth $1,000, and it's as good as cash, essentially. The Federal Reserve will recognize this, or everybody will recognize this as cash, so therefore you get your cash instantly, even though you don't have your cash in hand, which is a good idea, but Federal Reserve, moving on. Bitcoin's computing power sets record as over 100K new miners go online. So this just shows the confidence in the rising price of Bitcoin right now, that miners are just piling on the network. And, Bitmain going to be releasing their S17 miners and pumping up the production. I'm sure the price of the S15 and the S9s are virtually free, although I wouldn't get an S9 because there's simply not enough hash power anymore. Probably wouldn't make you too much even if the price of Bitcoin was pretty high. The total computing power now dedicated to securing the Bitcoin blockchain has set yet another record, according to the data from mining services operator BTC.com. The average Bitcoin mining hash rate over the last 2 weeks has reached 71.43 exahash, up from 64.49 exahash July 23rd. So the Bitcoin blockchain updates its difficulty every 2 weeks. Or is it every week? Every week or every 2 weeks? Oh, God, Bitcoin. So many numbers. The threshold was breached as Bitcoin adjusted its mining difficulty at the block height 58,000 or 586,672 on Monday UTC. That is 6.94 exahash, or 10.78% jump since mid-July, which is quite impressive to say the least. So the miners going strong. Bitcoin mining difficulty, however, to measure the mining rewards of Bitcoin, just how difficult the Bitcoin software makes to generate new blocks, just every 2016 blocks, approximately every 14 days. There it is. There you have it. 2 weeks. I knew that. I knew it. I promise. To ensure the block production time remains 10 minutes at the next cycle. Assume this additional 6.9 exahash computing power has all come from powerful ASIC miners such as Bitmain's Antminer's S17s or Micro BTC's WhatsMiner M20S, both of which boast around 55 terahash. That means about more than 100,000 top-of-the-line ASIC miners could have been switched on within the past 2 weeks. So again, the growing confidence of Bitcoin is just a good thing. If everybody's positive about it, then everybody's buying in, and Bitcoin is going up in price. You certainly wouldn't be putting 100,000 top-of-the-line ASIC miners online if you think the price was going to go down and it was going to cost you more in electricity. However, good old hodling. So either way, I suppose you look at it, as long as you're just positive it's going to go up eventually, might as well just keep on mining, I suppose. Coin market cap. We're at $306 billion market cap, going up, 11,642 Bitcoin. So we've gone down just a little scotch, but that is not particularly surprising. Earlier today it was 11,800 and some. I think maybe some exchanges might have reached 11,900. But, those people skimming just off the top there just before that 12,000. Nothing particularly unusual. But again, Ethereum, this is why I say it's kind of grossly undervalued. One, because 204,000 token contracts on it. And the other is that it's at $229 and hasn't been moving up particularly proportionally. It has moved up a good $30 or so in the past week or two, but not particularly fast. And again, Litecoin down to 95, and right as the halvening occurred, we could take a look, and right as that halvening occurred, we could see this boost, and August 5th here, and that's when all the halvening noise came out, and we reached about $104.36, and ever since been going right back down. So the confidence in Litecoin is just not there. So now the next step in terms of halvenings is Bitcoin's halvening. Will it do the same? I think the halvening of Litecoin is just not even 10% the hype that Bitcoin will have. Maybe even just 1% of the hype. So the hype for the Bitcoin halvening will blow Litecoin's hype out of the water. There's just no contest, and I think we're going to see some exceptionally high value. I think we're going to definitely break the all-time high, if not this year, by 2020, by the end of 2020 for sure. We will be over 20,000. I'm fairly confident in that. that'd be the kind of thing I'd hate to be proven wrong, but who knows? We've all guessed wrong. We all guessed wrong in 2018 when everybody was like, oh no, it's gonna be 50,000, it's gonna be 100,000 by the end of 2018, and it was like 3,200. Whoops, I guess everybody was wrong. However, that halvening hype, now that there's been 2 halvenings and everybody knows what happens after those halvenings, I think we're in for a treat in 2020. But that's all I have for you guys tonight. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. It helps me out a lot. My social media in the description below. Follow me on those if you get the opportunity to do so. But hope you guys enjoyed it. And as usual, I will see you guys next time.